Example 3b. Okay, so here's our new system of equations that we are going to attempt to solve. Okay, all right, first thing we're going to do is put this into a matrix. So let's write this down. Okay, so for our first equation, okay, there's a 2 in front of x, 6 in front of y, 15 in front of z, and then a negative 12 on the other side of the equal sign. Okay, second equation, we're going to write down 4, 7, 13, negative 10. Okay, and last equation, 3 in front of x, 6 in front of y, 12 in front of z, negative 9 on the other side. Okay, all right, let's start doing the Gauss-Jordan elimination systematically. Okay, we are going to start in the first column. We need to secure a 1 on the principal diagonal. Okay, all right, so usually when you're getting this first one, either you want to switch rows. Okay, if you look here, okay, neither of these two elements is a 1. Okay, so switching the rows would not put a 1 in this position. Okay, so the other thing we can try is to just go ahead and divide this first row by a non-zero number. Okay, so if we did 2 divided by 2, that would get us a 1 right here. Okay, so for our next matrix, okay, we are going to write down our row operation. We're just going to take the first row, divide everything by 2, and that is going to become the new first row. Okay. All right, so let's write that down. In the next matrix, okay, remember this means that only the first row will change. So row 2 will stay the same. Row 3 will stay the same. So go ahead and write those down, okay, so you don't get mixed up. And everything in the first row, we are going to have to divide by 2. Okay, so 2 divided by 2 is 1. 6 divided by 2 is 3. Okay, 15 divided by 2, yucky, is a fraction. Okay, and then negative 12 divided by 2 is negative 6. Okay, so a lot of the times when you do this, unfortunately, you get fractions. Okay, but again, you're going to have your calculator, and I will go through this problem and you're going to see how to work through the fractions. Okay, but again, if you suck at fractions, just go to the calculator. Okay. All right, continuing on with column number 1. We've got our 1 on the principal diagonal. I need to zero out the rest of the column. Okay, so we're going to change this 4. Okay. All right, so we are going to have to use our third row operation to get a 0 here. Okay, what is going to cancel a 4? A negative 4. Okay, so since we are in the first column, that means we need to multiply the first row by something. We're going to multiply by that negative 4. Okay, so if we did negative 4 times 1, that would put a negative 4 right here. Add it back to positive 4, that's going to give you your 0. Okay, so the third row or the third matrix, we are going to do negative 4 times the first row, add it back to the second row. That's going to become the new second row. Okay, all right, so let's go ahead and start writing down our matrix, and then we'll go do the workout to the side. Okay, only row 2 is changing. Okay, so row 1 will stay put, and so will row 3. Leave those guys alone. Okay, I'm gonna go out to the side and do this work. Okay, so we're gonna do negative 4 times row 1. So everybody in the first row gets multiplied by 4. So let's do that. That's gonna be negative 4, negative 12. All right, over here we're gonna have negative 4 times 15 halves. Okay, so remember, put that negative 4 over 1, multiply across the top and across the bottom. That's going to be negative 60 over 2. That's negative 30. Okay, so you're going to get negative 30. And then negative 4 times negative 6 is positive 24. Okay, you need to add this back to the second row. Go back to the previous matrix. Write down the second row. Okay, and add. So we're going to get 0. Negative 12 plus 5 is negative, or sorry, negative 12 plus 7 is negative 5. Negative 30 plus 13 is negative 17. 24 plus a negative 10, that's 24 minus 10. That is going to give you 14. Okay, so we're getting some yucky numbers here. Okay, but this is going to be your new second row. Okay, all right. Again, I'm just doing the work by hand, but again, you have your calculator. All right, so we've got a 0 in that spot. Okay, Continue working in the first column, okay? Now we need to zero out this 3, okay? All right, so again, rely on the third row operation, okay? We are in the first column. We need to multiply the first row by something. What is going to cancel a 3? A negative 3, okay? So if we do negative 3 times the first row, that will put a negative 3 here. Add it back to the third row, you'll get your 0. Okay, so to get to the next matrix, okay, our row operation is going to be negative 3 times the first row, add it back to the third row, and that'll become the new third row. Okay, all right, let's do it. Okay, we are only changing row 3, so we need to leave row 1 alone. We need to leave row 2 alone. And now let's go out to the side and do some work. Okay, so we are going to do negative 3 times row 1. Okay, so we need to run negative 3 through these numbers here. Okay, so we're going to get negative 3. Negative 3 times 3 is negative 9. We're going to go out to the side and handle this fraction. Negative 3 times 15 halves. Okay, so this is over 1. Multiply across the top and across the bottom. That's going to be negative 45 over 2. And unfortunately, that does not reduce, okay? And then negative 3 times negative 6 is positive 18, okay? And then we're going to add back the third row, okay? So go back to the previous matrix and write down your third row, and let's see what we get, okay? All right, negative 3 plus 3 is 0. Negative 9 plus 3 is, or sorry, negative 9 plus 6 is negative 3, okay? Let me go ahead and do 18 minus 9 is going to be 9, okay? Now we'll come back and handle this fraction, okay? Negative 45 over 2 plus 12, okay? So remember, if you're adding fractions, okay, you want to have a common denominator, okay? So this is over 1, okay? You need to make both of these fractions over 2, okay? This guy is already a fraction over 2, so that fraction is not going to change at all, okay? Remember why I picked 2 as the denominator, okay? If you're in doubt, just multiply them together. 2 times 1 is 2. That's how I got the common denominator. Again, the first fraction doesn't change because it already has the correct denominator. And now I need to rewrite this guy, okay? I'm going to multiply by 2 to get a denominator of 2. Since I did it to the bottom, I've got to do it to the top. And so that means 24 is going to go here. And so then once I have the same denominator, I can add them. We will keep the same denominator, and then we will just add across the top. So we will do negative 45 plus 24. Okay, so if we figure out what that is, that will be our new numerator. Okay, so if you do negative 45 plus 24, you will get negative 21. Okay, so unfortunately, it's still a fraction. Okay, so this is going to be, oops, let me get rid of that. This is going to be negative 21 over 2. All right, so here we go. Okay, so that is going to be your new third row. Okay, so let me fill this in. And we are done with the first column. Okay. All right, so we are going to move on to the second column. Okay. All right. First thing I need to do is secure a 1 on the main diagonal. Okay, so I need to change this negative 5 to a 1. Okay. If you switch the rows, it's going to undo your previous work. Okay, so you are stuck multiplying or dividing this row by a non-zero number. Okay, and you're going to have to do negative 5 divided by negative 5 to get the 1. Okay, so you're going to get more fractions. Okay, unfortunately. Okay. All right, I'm going to go ahead and do that here at the bottom here. So to get my next matrix, okay, I am going to take the second row, divide by negative 5, and that'll become the new second row. Okay, so let me just kind of fit this in down here. Okay, we're changing row 2. So rows 1 and 3 will stay put. All right, so let's leave that alone. And then row 3, leave it alone. All right, and now I'm going to come back and take every element in row 2 and divide by -5. 0 divided by -5 is 0. -5 divided by -5 is +1. -17 divided by -5 is going to be +17/5 because the negatives cancel. Let me rewrite that so I don't make a mistake later when I can't recognize what I wrote. 17/5. And then 14 divided by -5 is -14/5. Okay, so there we go. That's the fifth matrix. Okay, all right, we have secured the 1 on the principal diagonal. Time to keep working in this column and now change this 3 to a 0. Okay, so we've got to invoke our third row operation. Okay, so since we are in the second column, okay, we are going to multiply the second row by something. Okay, what are we going to multiply by? Well, we're trying to cancel a -3, so we are going to have to multiply, or sorry, we're trying to cancel a +3, so we're going to have to multiply by -3. Okay, so if you do -3 times +1, that'll be -3. Add it back to +3, you'll get your 0. Okay, so we're going to end up doing -3 times the second row, add it back to the first row, and that'll become the new first row. Okay, so let's do it. On the next page, I'm going to go ahead and write my sixth matrix here. Okay, so like I said, the row operation is going to be -3 times this row 2, add it back to the first row. Okay, and that's going to become our new first row. Okay, all right, since we're changing the first row, okay, row 2 is going to stay the same. Okay, so let's write that down. And row 3 is going to stay the same, so I will write that down as well. Okay, so let's see, the third row is 0, -3, -21/2, and 9. Okay, and so now we need to go out to the side and we need to perform this row operation. Okay, so I'm going to do -3 times the second row here. Okay, so we have 0, 1, 17/5, -14/5, these yucky fractions. Okay, every number is going to get multiplied by -3. Okay, so we're going to get 0, -3, and then I'm going to have to go out here and do, let's see, we're going to do -3 times 17/5. Okay, this is over 1. To multiply fractions, you multiply across the top and across the bottom. Okay, so we're going to have to do -3 times 17. So I'm going to use a calculator on my phone and figure that out. So this is going to be -51/5. Okay, so that's going to be that, -51/5. And then we're going to do -3 times -14/5. Negative times negative is going to turn it positive. Okay, so again, if you did this, you would multiply across the top. This would be over 1. The 3 would be over 1. Multiply across the top and across the bottom. Okay, this is going to be positive 42/5. Okay, and now we need to go back and add the first row. Okay, so we need to go back to the previous matrix. Okay, and we need to add the first row to it. Okay, so let's go ahead and write that down and then we can add them up. Okay, so let's see, our first row is going to be 1, 3, 15 halves, and -6. Ew, this is getting yucky. Okay. All right. So let's go ahead and add. Okay. So 0 plus 1 is 1. -3 plus 3 is 0. Okay. We've got to add these two guys, which you can do by hand. Okay. Or you can just use your calculator, which I'll do here because it's getting kind of messy. So we don't want to spend our whole time trying to do the arithmetic here instead of solve the system. Okay. So let's go ahead and do this one on the calculator. Okay, so let me pull it up. We're going to do, let's see here, we've got -51/5, and we're going to add to that 15 halves. Okay, hit enter, it's going to give you a decimal. Okay, and let's convert that to a fraction. Okay, so this is going to be -27/10. Okay, and then we'll do the same thing for the 42/5 minus 6. Okay, so let's do that. So 42/5 minus 6, you type it in just like you see it. Okay, and then math, Option 1 to convert to a fraction, this is going to be 12/5. Whoops. So here we go. Okay, that's the new first row. Whoops, I put the wrong thing. I told you my handwriting, I can't even read my own handwriting right now. All right, so negative 27/10 here and then 12/5 here. Okay, it is yucky. Okay, and sometimes this happens, unfortunately. Okay. All right, still in the second column. Okay, so now we've got to zero out this -3. Okay. All right, so again, use the third row operation. Okay. We are in the second column. We're going to have to multiply the second row by something. What do we multiply by? Well, we're trying to cancel a -3, so we're going to multiply by +3. Okay, because if you do 3 times 1, that will put a +3 here. Add it back to -3, you'll get your 0. All right, so for the next matrix, okay, for matrix number 7, okay, our row operation is going to be 3 times the second row, 3 times row 2 plus row 3. That's going to become the new third row. Okay. All right. So let's try to do this. Okay. Let's see here. When we rewrite the next matrix, okay, row 1 will stay the same, row 2 will stay the same. So let's go ahead and write those guys down so we don't lose track of them. And then we'll go out to the work and go out to the side and do the work for the new row 3. All right. Okay, so here we go. We are going to go and we're going to do, let's see, we're going to do 3 times row 2. Okay, so let's write down row 2 here. All right, so we're going to get 0, 3. Okay, and then we've got to do 3 times 17/5. Okay, again, you just multiply, put the 3 over 1, multiply across the top and multiply across the bottom. This is going to give you 51/5, okay? And then 3 times -14/5, that is going to be -42/5, okay? Again, these are things you can do on the calculator if you're not sure how to do them, okay? So like, for example, you could have done, let's see here, oops, hold on. You could have done, let's see, what was it? It was 3 times -14/5, 3 times -14/5. So type it in just like you see it, and then convert it to a fraction, okay? And so you could have gotten it that way if you don't want to do it, if you don't feel comfortable doing it by hand, okay? Anyway, that's what we got. We got multiplied the second row by 3, okay? Now we're going to go and we're going to add the third row back to it. Okay, so you've got to go back to your previous matrix. You've got to write down the third row. So that's going to be 0, -3, -21/2, and then 9. Okay, so more yucky numbers. Okay, so we've got to add these guys. Okay, 0 plus 0, 3 plus -3 is 0. Okay, I'm going to go to the calculator and do this guy. Okay, so we're going to have 51/5 plus a -21/2. Okay, so let's see here. We're going to have 51/5 plus a negative, what is it, 21/2? Yeah, 21/2. Okay, and there we go. Okay, convert this to a fraction. Okay, so we're going to get -3/10. Okay, and then do the same thing here, -42/5 plus 9. Okay, so -42/5 plus 9. Okay, convert to a fraction. Okay, this is going to be 3/5. Okay, so luckily, here you go. Okay, this is your new third row. Okay, we are done with the first 2 columns. Okay, it has not been easy, okay, because of these fractions. Okay, all right, let's move on to the third column. Okay, all right, first order of business, secure your 1 on the main diagonal. So you need to change this guy to a 1. Okay, switching rows does you no good. Okay, so we're going to have to multiply or divide this row by a non-zero number. Okay, easiest way to get the 1 there is to take -3/10 and divide it by itself. Anything divided by itself is 1. Okay, So in the next matrix, okay, what we're going to do is we are going to take row 3 and divide everything by -3/10. Okay, and that's going to become the new row 3. Okay, all right, so again, it's going to be tricky here because we're dividing fractions. Okay, I'll show you how to do it both by hand and on the calculator. Okay, so you can pick the way you like it the best. Okay, all right, so if we're changing row 3, rows 1 and 2 will stay put. So I'm just going to write those in really quick. Okay, and let's see, we've got this and we've got this. And now I'm going to start working here. All right, so 0 divided by -3/10 is going to be 0. Okay, so those two elements are going to be 0. Okay, -3/10 divided by -3/10. Anything divided by itself is going to be 1. Okay, and then we're going to have to go out to the side here, and we're going to have to do, we're going to have to take the 3/5 and divide it by -3/10. Okay, if you are dividing two fractions, remember how that works. Okay, you're going to leave the top fraction alone, you change the division to multiplication, and you flip the bottom fraction. Okay, and now it's a multiplication problem, so you multiply across the top, you multiply across the bottom. -30 divided by 15 is -2. Okay, so that's it. Okay, this last element should be -2. Okay, so you've got the 1 on the main diagonal there. Okay, before we go on and zero out the rest of the column, you could have done this on the calculator. Okay, let me show you really quick. Be really careful here. I suggest that you put both of the fractions in parentheses so that it divides correctly. So if we did this here, if I go to my calculator, I'm going to put 3/5 in parentheses, close the parentheses, divide by the other fraction, put that in parentheses like this. Okay, hit enter. Okay, and it'll give you the -2. Okay, but put those parentheses there just to be safe. I'm pretty sure you do need them there though. Okay, all right, so let's try to zero out the rest of the column. Okay, so we're in the third column here. Okay, so let's see here. We're going to have to change this guy to a 0. Okay, so you are going to have to use your third row operation. Okay, so we're going to have to add back to row 1 a multiple of a different row. Okay, so since we are in the third column, we need to multiply row 3 by something. What is going to cancel a -27 over 10? Okay, don't let this confuse you because it's a fraction. It's all you're going to have to do is multiply by +27/10. Okay, if you did 27 over 10 times 1, that's 27 over 10 right here. Okay, a positive one and a negative one, they're going to cancel. Okay, so your next row operation to get to the next matrix, okay, matrix number 9, we are going to do 27 tenths times row 3, add it back to row 1, that's going to become the new row 1. Okay, all right, so when we do this, okay, our next matrix, only row 1 is changing. So go ahead and write down what is already there for rows 2 and 3. Okay, so here we go. Let's write this down. And then we'll go do our work. Okay, so there we go. Okay, all right, I'm going to go out to the side. Okay, we're going to have to do 27 tenths times row 3. Okay, so let's do that. Okay, 27 tenths times 0 is going to be 0. 27 tenths times 1 is itself. Okay, and then if you do 27 tenths times -2, put the -2 over 1, multiply across the top and across the bottom. 27 times 2 is, or times -2 is going to be -54 over 10. Okay, so that's what that's going to give you. All right, and then add back to it row 1. Okay, so we're going to have to go back to the previous matrix. Okay, write down row 1. So we've got 1, 0, 27 tenths, 12/5. Okay, add these guys. Okay, you're going to get 1, 0. Oops, I forgot something here. Look what I did. Okay, when I wrote down the first row from the previous matrix, this should have been a -27 tenths. Okay, so make sure you realize, look where my little cursor is hovering. Okay, this should have matched this. Okay, All right, so now we've got 27 tenths plus a negative 27 tenths. That's going to zero out, okay? And now I'm going to go to my calculator and I'm going to do negative 54 over 10 plus 12 fifths, okay? So negative 54 over 10 plus 12 fifths, just like this, hit enter, okay? It is negative 3, okay? So there is your new first row, okay? One more step. We are almost there. This one has been a hassle. Okay. Still in column 3. Got to change this guy to a 0. Okay. So you've got one more matrix to go. All right. We are going to use our third row operation to get a 0 there. Okay. Since you're in column 3, you want to multiply row 3 by something. Okay. I'm trying to cancel a 17 fifths. Okay. What is going to cancel that? Negative 17 fifths. Okay. So if we multiply row 3 by negative 17 fifths, that would put a negative 17 fifths right here. If you add it back to positive 17 fifths, it will cancel out. So our final row operation here, okay, is going to be negative 17 fifths times the third row, add it back to the second row. That will become the new second row, okay? And then we shall be done, okay? All right, so in our last matrix, we're only making a change to rows 1 and 3. So I'm going to go ahead and rewrite those guys in. All right, so now let's go out to the side and do our work for this final row, okay? All right, we are going to do negative 17 fifths, okay, times row 3. All right, so let's do that. Negative 17 fifths times 0 is 0, 0. Okay, negative 17 fifths times 1 is itself. And then if we do negative 17 fifths times negative 2, put the negative 2 over 1, negative times negative will be positive. This is going to give you, multiply across the top and across the bottom, this is going to give you 34 over 5. Okay, go ahead and now add to it row 2. So go back to your previous matrix. Okay, look at row 2. We're going to write that down so we can add it. All right, so let's do it. Okay, so if we add here, okay, we're going to get 0 plus 0, 0 plus 1, negative 17 fifths plus positive 17 fifths, those cancel and give you 0. Okay, 34 over 5 minus 14 over 5. Okay, you are, if you're doing this, you're basically subtracting two fractions. They already have a common denominator, okay? So if you did this right here, 34 over 5 minus 14 over 5, okay, they've got a common denominator. So if you combine them, the denominator will be 5, and then just subtract across the top. 34 minus 14 is going to give you 20. So 20 divided by 5 is 4, okay? So if you do this, you will get 4, okay? And you could do that on the calculator, okay? That is your last row. So put this in, okay? We have met our goal. Okay, here's your goal. You did it. Okay, that means there is a unique solution. You should be able to identify the X, the Y, and the Z. Okay, and then here they are. Remember, if you translate this back into a system of equations, the top number will be the X, the next number, the middle number will be the Y, and the bottom number will be the Z. Okay, so X is going to be negative 3, Y is going to be positive 4, and Z is going to be negative 2. Okay, so I am going to go ahead, I'm going to go back to the original problem, okay, and I'm going to write the solution, okay? So if we go back over here, okay, the solution to this system is going to be that X is negative 3, Y is positive 4, Z is negative 2. You could also write that as an order triple where X goes first, then Y, then Z, okay? This problem sucked. Okay, but I'm going to give you a little bit of advice here. Okay, yes, I did this with fractions. Okay, if you remember when I talked about Gauss-Jordan elimination before we started working these larger systems, I told you there was more than one way to do the row operations. Okay, a lot of the times you can find another way. Okay, there was a way to totally avoid the fractions. Okay, sometimes those ways are difficult to see. So that's why I wanted to show you how to work with fractions in case you don't see the way to avoid the fractions. That way you have some practice with fractions, okay? But if we go back to this problem, okay, one of the things that we could have done, and I will actually write this up for you so you could see the alternative method. Okay, you're going to get the same solution. Okay, but one of the things you could have done to avoid the fraction, okay, when you started off the system of equations, if you look at the third equation, all of the numbers are divisible by 3, okay? So you could have switched rows 1 and 3 and put this equation in the top, okay? And then divided each of these numbers by 3. That would have put a 1 in this spot, okay? And you would have had 1, 2, 4, and -3, and you would have totally avoided the fractions, okay? So again, if you had switched rows 1 and 3 in the beginning and then taken the new first row and divided everything by 3, you would have gotten the 1 without fractions, okay? It's just a matter, it's like an art to see the trick to avoid the fractions, okay? So if you can't avoid the fractions, unfortunately, you're stuck with it, okay? But I am going to write up that alternate way so you can see you do arrive at the same solution, okay? It's just an art of being able to recognize how to get around the fractions, okay? So make sure when you do there's not going to be a video for it, but if you print out the filled out notes, if you look at those, I will have that alternative method in there, okay? All right, let's try another one.